The rain fell slowly that morning. The sky was gray, the ground was wet. Cold wind moved through the trees of the quiet graveyard. Birds did not sing. Everything felt still, like the world had stopped. A black car stood alone near the gate. From it stepped a man dressed in a long black coat. His name was Mr. Zion. He was a millionaire known by many, but today he looked like just another broken father. He walked slowly between the graves, holding a single white flower in his hand. His eyes were red. His face was tired. His shoes were covered in mud, but he did not care. His heart was too heavy. Finally, he reached a small grave under an old tree. The stone was simple, but the words on it cut like a knife. Arian Zion, beloved son, you left too soon. 2007, 2023. Zion fell to his knees and placed the flower on the stone. He touched the cold marble with his shaking hands and whispered, "Happy birthday, my son." He closed his eyes and remembered. 1 year ago, Arian was full of life. He laughed all the time. He loved playing the piano and eating his mom's biryani. He was kind to everyone, even strangers. Zion and his wife had only one child, and he was their world. But then the accident happened. Arian was coming home from school with his driver. It was raining that day, too. The car lost control and crashed near the river. The driver survived. Arian didn't. Or, that's what everyone believed. The people at the funeral whispered, "Mr. Zion had everything, money, big houses, luxury cars, but now he has nothing." Zion stopped going to the office. He didn't care about his business anymore. He didn't care about money. What use was money if the person you loved most was gone? He visited Arian's grave every week, but today was different. It was Arian's birthday. Zion sat on the wet grass and cried silently. Then, he heard it, a small voice, soft, almost a whisper. "He's not really gone." Zion's head turned quickly. He stood up and looked around. "Who said that?" he called out, his voice shaking. Silence. He looked behind the tree. Nothing. Then, just a few steps away, he saw someone. A small boy stood near the back fence. His clothes were old and torn. His face was thin and pale. He was barefoot. His eyes were watching Zion closely. Zion stared at the boy. The boy didn't run. He didn't smile. He just stood there, quietly, watching. Zion slowly walked toward him. "Did you say something just now?" he asked. The boy didn't answer. Zion looked around again. No one else was there. Only the boy. "Who are you?" Zion asked. Still, no answer. The boy looked down, then turned and walked away into the trees. Zion stood frozen. His heart beat faster. That voice. Was it real? Was the boy playing a trick? Or was he hiding something? That night, Zion couldn't sleep. He sat alone in his dark study, holding a photo of Arian. Rain hit the windows softly. His mind kept going back to the boy's voice. He's not really gone. He got up and looked out the window. The city lights glowed in the distance, but his world felt dark. Suddenly a thought hit him. What if Arian's death wasn't what it seemed? What if someone lied? He grabbed his coat and rushed back to the graveyard. He needed to see the boy again. He needed answers. But when he arrived, the graveyard was empty. Only the sound of the wind in the trees remained. Zion stood there, staring at Arian's grave, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope and fear. He whispered, "If you know something, please come back." From behind a broken fence, small eyes watched him again. The homeless boy was there. But this time he was holding something shiny in his hand. A silver chain, the same chain Arian used to wear. The next morning, Mr. Zion returned to the graveyard early. The ground was still wet from the rain. His eyes searched every corner. Wasn't there to mourn today? He was looking for the boy, the homeless boy, the one who whispered, "He's not really gone." Zion walked from tree to tree, calling softly, "Boy, are you here? I just want to talk." But no answer came. Just when he was about to leave, something caught his eye. a small piece of paper stuck under a rock near Arian's grave. He picked it up. It was a photo. His hands trembled. It was a picture of Arian standing in front of an old building. But something was wrong. The date printed on the photo said 3 months ago, but Arian had died a year ago. Zayan's heart raced. He turned the photo over. On the back, someone had written, "He helped me once, now it's my turn to help him." Before Zayan could think, he heard the sound of running feet. He looked up, and there he was. The boy. He was standing near the Yoris, holding something in his hand. His clothes were the same, dirty and torn, but today he wasn't hiding. Zayan quickly walked toward him. "Wait, please don't run, I just want to talk," he said. The boy looked scared but didn't move. He slowly raised his hand and showed what he was holding. It was a small black notebook. Zayan stopped. His heart skipped a beat. He recognized that notebook. It was Arian's. He had seen it on his son's study table many times. Arian used it to write poems, thoughts, and little stories. It had a sticker on it, "Believe in kindness," just like the one Arian had stuck years ago. "Where did you get that?" Zayan asked, his voice low. The boy looked at him and whispered, "He gave it to me before he disappeared." Zayan stepped closer. "Do you know Arian?" The boy nodded. Zayan sat down on a nearby bench, his legs weak. He looked at the boy and asked softly, "Please tell me what you know." The boy looked around as if making sure no one was watching. Then he sat on the grass in front of Zayan. "My name is Rehan," the boy said. "I live on the streets. I never had a home. I used to sit outside shops and beg for food. One day, a boy gave me a sandwich and told me I mattered." Zayan listened closely. "It was Arian," Rehan continued. "He talked to me, treated me like a friend. He came to meet me often. He gave me clothes. And this notebook." Zayan wiped his tears. "Why didn't you come forward before?" Rehan looked down. "After the crash, people said he died. I thought it was over, but a few months later I saw him. Alive." Zayan's eyes widened. "Where?" "In the city, near the old train station. He didn't see me. He was hiding, wearing a cap and sunglasses. But I knew it was him. I tried to follow him, but he disappeared. Then one night, someone dropped this notebook near where I sleep." Zayan opened the notebook. Inside, it was filled with Arian's handwriting. There were pages of drawings, thoughts, and notes. But one line stood out, written in bold letters. "If Dad finds this, tell him I'm sorry. I had no choice." Zayan's hands shook. "What does this mean?" Rehan looked nervous. "I think Arian is hiding from someone dangerous." Zayan's breath caught. "Who?" Rehan looked around again. "I don't know, but I think someone wants to keep him hidden, or maybe make him disappear for good." Suddenly Rehan stood up. "I have to go, they might be watching me too." Zayan stood. "Wait, who are they? What's going on?" Rehan backed away. "I can't say more, but I'll meet you again. Same place, tomorrow." Before Zayan could stop him, Rehan turned and ran down the road, disappearing into the crowd. Zayan stood frozen, the notebook clutched to his chest. That night, he read every page. Arian had written about strange things, men following him, secrets he couldn't tell, and a line that chilled Zayan to the bone. "If anything happens to me, look for the key." At the very end of the notebook, taped inside the back cover, Zayan found a small metal key, a key with a number, 137B. What did it open? And more importantly, where was Arian? That night, Mr. Zayan could not sleep. He sat alone in his study, holding the small notebook Rehan had given him. The pages still smelled like Arian's old room. Faint ink and paper, the smell of memories. His hands kept going back to the last page, where the metal key was taped. B. What did it mean? Was it a locker? A door? A storage unit? And most of all, why would Arian be hiding from his own father? Zayan's mind raced with questions. The pain of losing Arian returned, but this time it came with a spark of hope. Could his son truly be alive? The next morning, Zion drove across the city with the notebook in his jacket pocket. He visited train stations, lockers, even his own company's warehouses. But nothing had the number 137B. Frustrated and tired, he returned to the high graveyard at noon. Rehan had promised to meet him again. This time, Zion brought food, water, and warm clothes. He didn't know what Rehan was caught up in, but the boy clearly lived a hard life. An hour passed, then 2. No sign of Rehan. Just as Zion was about to leave, he saw a shadow move behind the trees. Rehan stepped out slowly, holding something. Close to his chest, a torn piece of cloth. Zion gave a soft smile. "I was waiting." Rehan looked nervous. "I couldn't come earlier. Someone was following me." Zion's eyes narrowed. "Who?" "I don't know," Rehan whispered. "But I've seen that man before. He wears black. He watches from a distance." Zion gave him the food and water. "Eat first, then we'll talk." Rehan ate quietly. Then he held out the piece of cloth. "This was inside the pocket of Aryan's old jacket, the one he gave me." "Look." Zion took it. Inside the cloth was a small folded paper. When he opened it, his eyes widened. It was a deposit slip from a private locker room near the old metro station. Locker number 137B. Zion stood up at once. "That's it. That's what the key is for." Rehan grabbed his arm. "Wait, it could be dangerous. What if someone is watching that locker too?" Zion looked at the boy. "Then we'll go together. If my son left something there, I need to find it." That evening, they reached the old metro station. It was dirty and quiet. Paint was peeling off the walls. A few old men sat on benches, sleeping or staring into space. Rehan led Zion to the basement, where the private lockers were hidden behind a rusted metal door. Zion took a deep breath and inserted the key into locker 137B. Click. The door creaked open. Inside, there was only one thing: a brown envelope, sealed with red tape. On the front, a single line was written, "Only for my father." Zion's hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a letter. "Dear Dad, if you're reading this, it means you didn't give up. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you and Mom, but I had to disappear. Someone was after me. I saw something I wasn't supposed to. I heard things, dangerous things, about your company, about a man named Mr. Samir. He works with you, doesn't he's not who he says he is. He's hiding things, big things. I tried to tell you before, but I was scared. One night they followed me. I ran, I hid, I never went home again. I didn't want to risk your life, or Mom's. But I miss you. Every day. If you want to find me, look at the place where you taught me to ride a bicycle. I'll be waiting. Your son." Aryan. Zion wiped his eyes. His heart felt heavy and full at the same time. Aryan was alive, in danger, but alive. Rehan looked up. "What does it say?" Zion folded the letter gently. "He's in hiding, because someone in my company wants to hurt him. A man named Samir." Rehan's eyes widened. "I've heard that name. Some homeless kid said he pays people to watch certain places. Maybe that's why someone's following me." Zion placed a hand on Rehan's shoulder. "Then we need to be smart. We'll go to that place tomorrow. I know where Aryan meant. It's where I first taught him to ride a bike by the lake near our old farmhouse." Rehan nodded. Zion added, "And after that, I'll make sure no one ever hurts you again either." As they left the station, Zion noticed a man in black leaning against a wall pretending to smoke. Zion held Rehan's hand and walked faster. The man's eyes followed them. Then he took out a phone and dialed. The next morning, Mr. Zayn woke up with a strange feeling, fear mixed with hope. He dressed in simple clothes and took only one thing with him: the letter from Aryan. He drove far outside the city, past empty roads, broken signboards, and quiet fields, until he reached a place that once held beautiful memories: the lake. It was peaceful, with clear water and soft wind blowing through the trees. Years ago, he had brought Aryan here to teach him how to ride a bicycle. Arian had fallen so many times, but he always got back up, laughing. Zayan stood near the old wooden bench by the edge of the lake. He whispered to the wind, "I'm here, son." A few minutes later, Rehan arrived. He had taken a bus and walked the rest of the way. His eyes lit up when he saw Zayan. "Did he come?" Zayan shook his head. "Not yet." They sat on the bench and waited. 1 hour passed, then another. The sun started to set, painting the sky with orange and pink. Zayan stood up and paced the grass, nervous. What if it was a trap? What if this was just a game someone is playing? Rehan looked around. "No, I feel something. He's close." Suddenly, they heard the sound of a bicycle bell. Ding! Ding! Zayan turned quickly. A young man was riding toward them, slowly, carefully, wearing a gray hoodie and dark glasses. He stopped a few feet away. Zayan stepped forward. "Arian?" The man took off his glasses. Zayan's heart stopped. It was him, his son. Arian looked thinner, his eyes tired. But it was him. The same eyes, the same smile. "Dad," Arian whispered. Zayan ran and hugged him tightly. Tears poured down both their faces. "You're alive!" Zayan cried. "My boy, you're alive!" Arian hugged back. "I missed you every single day." Rehan stood quietly, watching the father and son reunite, his eyes filled with silent joy. They sat together by the lake as Arian began to speak. "It started when I found a file in Mr. Samir's office. I was just delivering your laptop, but I saw something. Records, fake accounts, money transfers." Zayan frowned. "Samir handles company funds." Arian nodded. "Exactly. But he was stealing from you. Millions. And worse, he was paying people to do illegal things, bribing officials, threatening witnesses." Zayan's face turned pale. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "I tried," Arian said. "But that same night I was followed. Someone tried to crash into my car. I barely escaped. I knew then. It wasn't safe. I left everything. I faked the crash." Zayan shook his head in disbelief. "You faked your own death? To protect us?" Arian's eyes watered. "I couldn't. Put you and Mom in danger, so I disappeared." Zayan sighed. "Your mother, she still cries every night." Arian lowered his head. "I want to see her. I want to come home." Zayan smiled. "Then come back. We'll fix everything. We'll go to the police." But Arian looked worried. "It's not that easy. Samir knows I'm alive now. I saw one of his men outside the locker room yesterday." Rehan quickly added, "He saw us too. A man in black. He followed us." Zayan stood up. "Then we can't wait. We must act before they do." Suddenly, a loud noise came from the trees. A gunshot. Zayan grabbed both boys and pulled them down behind the bench. Another shot hit the tree near them. "Run!" Arian shouted. They sprinted toward the woods. Rehan led the way through narrow paths, ducking under branches, hearts pounding. Behind them, footsteps followed, shouting voices, men chasing. They finally reached an old shed near the edge of the forest. Arian locked the door from inside. All three breathed hard, trying to stay quiet. Zayan looked at Arian. "They want to kill you." Arian nodded. "They know I have proof, the files, the USB drive I kept. It's still hidden in the farmhouse attic." Zayan looked shocked. "You hid evidence there?" "Yes," Arian said. "Behind the old bookshelf in my room." Zayan turned to Rehan. "We'll go there tomorrow. Tonight we stay hidden." Arian looked at Rehan and smiled. "You helped my dad. You helped me. Thank you." Rehan blushed. "You once gave me food. Now I return the favor." They all smiled, but fear still hung in the air. Outside, the forest was silent, but danger was not far. The next morning, the forest was quiet again. Mr. Zayan, Arian, and Rehan left the old shed just after sunrise. They moved carefully, avoiding the main road. Arian wore a cap and mask to stay hidden. Rehan carried a small bag with food and water. They were heading to a place no one had visited in years, Zayan's old farmhouse. It was once a happy home filled with laughter, love, and games. Now, it stood alone on a hill, surrounded by weeds and broken memories. As they walked up the dusty path, Zayan whispered, "Are you sure the files are still here?" Arian nodded. "I never told anyone about this place, not even my friends." When they reached the gate, it creaked loudly. Zayan pushed it open slowly. The air inside the house was cold and smelled like dust. Paint peeled off the walls. Cobwebs covered the corners. Still, Arian smiled. "It hasn't changed much." Rehan looked around, amazed. "This was your house?" Arian nodded. "We used to come here every summer." They went straight to Arian's old room. The bookshelf stood in the same corner. It looked untouched, but Arian walked to it and pulled out a thick novel. Behind it was a small wooden box locked with a simple latch. Arian opened the box and pulled out a black USB drive. "This," he said softly, "has all the proof. Emails, money transfers, voice recordings. Everything Samir tried to hide." Zayan took it carefully. "With this, we can take him down." But just as he said that, glass shattered. A stone flew through the window and hit the wall. Then, footsteps. "They found us," Rehan cried. Zayan rushed to the front door. "Out the back now!" They ran through the kitchen and out the back door, into the open fields behind the farmhouse. But the men in black were fast. One of them shouted, "Stop! Give us the USB!" Arian held the drive tightly. "Never!" Shots rang out again. Zayan and the boys ran into the cornfield, hiding between the tall plants. They moved low, crawling through the mud. One wrong move, one noise, and it could all be over. Suddenly, Arian gasped. "I dropped it." Zayan froze. "What?" "The USB. It slipped out of my hand." They looked around, panic in their eyes. The cornfield was huge. The stalks all looked the same. Rehan got on his knees and started crawling. "We'll find it. Just keep looking," Zayan whispered. "Quickly, before they get too close." Footsteps grew louder. The men were getting closer. One of them was only a few feet away now. Then Rehan shouted softly, "I got it!" He held up the USB with a big smile. But just as they turned to run, one of the men stepped in front of them. He pointed a gun at Arian. "Give it to me." "Now." Arian stood still, his hands shaking. Then from behind the man, a loud bang. The man screamed and dropped his gun. A second man shouted, "Go, go," and ran away. Zayan looked up and saw an old farmer standing at the edge of the field with a shotgun. "I saw them from my barn," the farmer said. "You okay, son?" Zayan nodded. Quickly, "You saved our lives." They followed the farmer to his small house nearby and called the police. By the time the police arrived, the men in black had disappeared again. But the officers took Arian's statement and the USB drive for investigation. Zayan also gave the police Arian's letter and the bank documents. The officer in charge said, "This could be big. With this much proof, Mr. Samir will have nowhere to hide." Arian finally let out a breath of relief. Rehan smiled. "Does this mean it's over?" Zayan placed a hand on both boys' shoulders. "Not yet, but we're close." That evening, Zayan drove Arian and Rehan back to the city. They stayed in a secure hotel under police protection. As the city lights appeared in the distance, Arian looked at his father. "Do you think Mom will forgive me?" Zayan smiled with tears in his. "You knew. She never stopped praying for you. Her heart knew you were alive." Arian leaned back in his seat. "I want to see her. I want to go home." Zayan held his hand. "Tomorrow, son, you'll be back where you belong." But just then, Rehan's phone buzzed. He checked it and frowned. "There's a message," he said, "from a number I don't know. It says, 'You think you're safe?' It's not over." Zayan gripped the steering wheel tighter. Samir was still out there, watching. The next morning, Zayan stood in front of his house with Arian and Rehan. It had been a year since Arian had last walked through that door. A year since his mother cried herself to sleep holding his picture. A year of silence, pain, and waiting. Arian's heart beat fast. His hands were cold. "What if she doesn't forgive me?" he whispered. Zayan smiled softly. "She's your mother. She never stopped loving you." He opened the door. Inside, the house was quiet. Arian stepped in slowly like he was entering a dream. The same photos hung on the walls. The same scent of his mother's cooking still lived in the air. Then, Aryan? A soft voice called from the stairs. Aryan looked up. His mother stood there, her eyes wide, her hands shaking. She dropped the basket she was holding and ran. "Down! My son!" she cried. They hugged tightly. Aryan cried into her shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Mama. I missed you so much." She kissed his forehead again and again. "You're alive. You're really alive." Zayan stood back and watched with tears in his eyes. Rehan smiled quietly from the corner, his heart warm. Later that day, the police officer arrived. He told Zayan that Samir had disappeared. "He's gone underground," the officer said. "But we've frozen his accounts and issued a warrant." Aryan gave more details about the crimes he had discovered. The police were confident they would catch Samir soon, but the danger wasn't fully over. That night, Zayan invited Rehan to stay with them. "You're part of this family now," he said. "You helped bring my son back." Rehan looked shocked. "Me? But I'm just a homeless boy." Zayan shook his head. "You're more than that. You're brave, kind, and loyal." Aryan added, "You're my brother now." Rehan smiled, eyes shining. The next few days felt like a dream. Aryan walked around. The garden, the kitchen, his old room. Everything felt familiar but new. He helped his mother cook. He sat with his father and watched old family videos. He and Rehan even played games on his old console. It was peace. It was home. But peace never lasts forever. One afternoon, Rehan went to the nearby shop to buy sweets for Aryan's welcome dinner. While waiting outside, a black car stopped beside him. A man in sunglasses stepped out. "Rehan, right?" the man asked with a friendly smile. Rehan stepped back. "Who are you?" "I have a message from someone who cares about you," the man said, handing Rehan a phone. Rehan hesitated, then took it. A video started playing. It showed a dark room, and in it, tied to a chair, was Rehan's younger sister. Her face was bruised. She was crying. A voice in the video said, "Tell Rehan to bring us the USB or the girl dies." Rehan's hand shook. The man leaned in. "You know what to do." Then he got in the car and drove off. Rehan stood frozen. His past. One. He had never told anyone. Had come back. He had a sister. They lived on the streets together after losing their parents. But one day, a group of men took her. Rehan searched for months but never found her. Now, she was a hostage. Samir had her. That night, Rehan sat on the terrace, staring at the USB Aryan had trusted him with. He couldn't sleep. His heart was heavy. Zayan came up with 2 cups of tea. "You okay, Beta?" Rehan nodded weakly. "Just thinking." Zayan sat beside him. "You've changed our lives, Rehan. You brought light into this house again. I don't know how to thank you." Rehan looked down. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. If someone you loved was in danger, would you risk everything to save them?" Zayan didn't hesitate. "Yes, I would." Rehan nodded slowly. Later that night, while everyone was asleep, Rehan left. He took the USB and a note he left on Aryan's bed. In the morning, Aryan found the note. It read, "I'm sorry. I had to choose between your truth and my sister's life. Please forgive me. Rehan." Aryan's eyes widened. Zayan, read the note, and dropped it in shock. "No, Rehan wouldn't." Aryan's hands shook. "He took the USB. He's going to give it to Samir." Zayan ran to the phone and called the officer. "Rehan is in danger, and so is everything we've worked for." Somewhere far away, in an old warehouse, Rehan stood face to face with Samir. "I brought what you asked," Rehan said, holding up the USB. Samir smiled. "Good boy. But first, and let her go," Rehan demanded. Samir waved his hand. A guard pushed Rehan's little sister forward. She ran to Rehan and hugged him tightly. "You came for me," she cried. "I'll always come for you," he whispered. Samir laughed. "Touching. Now give it to me." Rehan looked at his sister, then at Samir, and slowly held out the USB. Samir grabbed it with a wicked smile, but he didn't know. It was a copy. Samir laughed as he held the USB in his hand. Well done, Rayhan, he said, smiling coldly. You did the smart thing. Rayhan stood quietly, holding his sister close. His heart pounded in his chest, but his face stayed calm. Samir turned to his men. Make sure the boy and the girl disappear. I don't need them anymore. The guards started walking toward Rayhan, but before they could touch him, a loud shout came from outside. Police! Don't move! In seconds, armed officers rushed into the warehouse. The guards tried to run but were caught. Samir tried to hide the USB, but a voice rang out. Drop it, Samir! It was Zayan. He stepped forward with Aryan by his side, both protected by police. Samir's eyes widened. How did you? Aryan stepped closer. You think I'd give the real USB to anyone? Rayhan gave you a copy. Samir looked at Rayhan with anger. You tricked me? Rayhan looked straight into his eyes. You don't scare me anymore, and you'll never hurt my sister again. The police arrested Samir and his men. The officers collected the fake USB and, most importantly, the real one that Zayan had given them earlier. It had everything: bank transactions, voice recordings, proof of Samir's crimes, threats, and even connections to other criminals. Officer turned to Zayan and Aryan. Thanks to this, we can shut down his entire network. He's finished. Aryan looked at Rayhan. You were ready to give up everything for your sister. Rayhan smiled. And you were ready to risk everything. For me, that's what family does. Zayan stepped forward and placed a hand on both boys' shoulders. You both saved our family. Days passed. Samir's arrest made headlines. People were shocked. A respected businessman had been running illegal activities for years, until his own nephew exposed him. Zayan got calls from lawyers, reporters, and business partners, but he wasn't interested in fame or revenge. He only cared about his family. One afternoon, Zayan stood on his balcony watching the sunset. Aryan walked beside him. Do you think things will go back to normal? Aryan asked. Zayan smiled gently. No, I think they'll be better than before. In the living room, Rayhan sat with his little sister, helping her read a picture book. She giggled as he made funny voices. Zayan entered with a surprise. I've spoken to the best school in the city. They've agreed to give her a full scholarship, and you too, Rayhan, if you want it. Rayhan's eyes widened. Really? But I've never even been to school. Zayan nodded. You've already passed the hardest test, life. Rayhan looked down, tears in his eyes. Thank you. I don't know what to say. Aryan patted his back. Just say you'll stay with us. Rayhan looked at his sister. She smiled brightly, then he looked at Zayan. I'll stay. Months later, a grand ceremony was held at a community center. Zayan was being honored for his bravery and honesty, but he stood at the stage and called two boys forward. My son, Aryan, and this young hero, Rayhan. The crowd clapped loudly as the boys joined him. These two saved not just me but many lives. I'm proud to call them my sons. Rayhan looked down shyly. Aryan raised his hand and held Rayhan's. The crowd stood and cheered. After the ceremony, as they walked out into the fresh evening air, Aryan turned to Rayhan. Remember when we first met? Rayhan smiled. You were crying. At a grave. I was hiding behind a tree. Aryan nodded. Funny how life brings strangers together. Rayhan said softly. We were strangers once. Now we're brothers. Back at home, Zayan placed a new photo on the wall. It showed the whole family. Zayan, his wife, Aryan, Rayhan, and Rayhan's little sister, all smiling, all together. Below the photo, a small wooden sign read, Family is not just blood. It's love, sacrifice, and truth. That night, as the stars lit up the sky, Aryan stood at his window looking at the world with new eyes. He had come back from the dead. He had seen betrayal, fear, and pain. But he had also found something stronger, hope. And in that hope, a broken family had become whole again.